Welcome to Into the Darkness, where we dive into the most spine-chilling and captivating true crime stories from around the world. Each week, we take you deep into the heart of the darkest mysteries and the most notorious criminals. Our detailed narratives, gripping voiceovers, and vivid visuals will immerse you in the thrilling world of true crime. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to join our community of crime enthusiasts. Get ready to uncover the truth, face the terror, and remember, every story hides a shadow. Now, let's dive into the darkness. Shackles of Despair. The storm lashed against the weathered walls of the Shanty orphanage, its howling winds and pelting rain a fitting backdrop to the dread that lingered within. In a dimly lit room, illuminated only by the flickering flame of an oil lamp, a young girl named Asha huddled in a corner, her eyes wide with fear. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway, each step drawing closer to her hiding spot. Asha's heart pounded in her chest. She clutched a worn-out teddy bear, the last remnant of her childhood innocence. The door creaked open, and a silhouette appeared in the doorway. It was Mr. Rajan, the orphanage's director, a man known in the community for his seemingly benevolent nature. But to the children of Shanty Orphanage, he was a figure of terror. "Come here, Asha." Mr. Rajan's voice was deceptively soft. "It's time to go." Asha's instinct screamed at her to run, but where could she go? The orphanage was her prison, and the world outside a perilous unknown. With trembling hands, she stood up and walked toward him, each step a reluctant surrender to the inevitable. Mr. Rajan led her through the orphanage's dim corridors, past rooms filled with sleeping children, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. He took her to his office, a room lined with dark wooden shelves and stacks of paperwork. On his desk, a suitcase lay open, filled with crisp banknotes. Standing beside it was a man Asha had never seen before, a tall, imposing figure with cold, calculating eyes. "This is Minister Sharma," Mr. Rajan introduced the man, his tone oozing false respect. "He will take care of you." Asha's heart sank. She had heard whispers among the older children about what happened to those who left with men like Minister Sharma. They never returned. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. Minister Sharma stepped forward, his gaze piercing through her. "Don't worry, little one," he said, his voice a chilling calm. "You're going to a better place." As he reached out to grab her, Asha's mind screamed for her to fight, but her body was frozen with fear. The last thing she saw before darkness enveloped her was Mr. Rajan's indifferent face as he counted the money. Asha awoke in the back seat of a luxurious car, her hands bound and a blindfold covering her eyes. The car bumped along a rough road, the engine's hum and the sound of rain against the windows the only things she could hear. She struggled against the restraints, but they were too tight. Exhausted and terrified, she eventually fell into a fitful sleep, haunted by nightmares of her past. Hours later, the car came to a stop. Asha was roughly pulled from the vehicle, her blindfold removed to reveal a grand mansion surrounded by dense forest. The mansion's facade was an imposing structure of dark stone, its windows glowing with an eerie light in the gloom of the storm. Mr. Rajan's descent into corruption had been gradual, almost imperceptible. Once a dedicated social worker, he had opened Shanty Orphanage with the noblest of intentions. The orphanage was supposed to be a haven for children, a place where they could find safety and hope. However, years of underfunding and bureaucratic neglect had worn him down. Faced with mounting debts and a failing institution, he had made a deal with the devil, or rather with Minister Sharma. Sharma was a high-ranking government official, outwardly respected but inwardly corrupt. His public persona was that of a reformer, a champion of the poor. But behind closed doors, he orchestrated one of the most heinous trafficking rings in the region. He preyed on the vulnerable, exploiting the very people he claimed to protect. Sharma's backstory was one of unchecked ambition and moral decay. Born into a wealthy family, he had always been accustomed to power and privilege. His rise through the political ranks had been meteoric, fueled by ruthless cunning and a willingness to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. Beneath his polished exterior lay a man who saw people as pawns, tools to be used and discarded. Asha, on the other hand, was a symbol of resilience. Orphaned at the age of 6, she had learned to navigate the harsh realities of orphanage life with a strength beyond her years. Her bright eyes and hopeful spirit had made her a favorite among the staff, but none had dared to protect her when Rajan came for her. As Asha was driven away from the orphanage, her mind raced with memories of her life before, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the sound of her father's laughter. These memories were her only solace, her anchor in a world gone mad. The car journey seemed endless, the rain-soaked roads winding through the dense, dark forests. Eventually, they reached a secluded mansion, nestled deep in the heart of the woods. Upon arriving at the mansion, Asha was taken inside and led down a narrow staircase to a dimly lit basement. The air was thick with the smell of dampness and despair. In the basement, Asha saw other children, their faces pale and hollow. Each child had a similar look of fear and hopelessness, a reflection of the horrors they had endured. Days turned into weeks, and the children were subjected to unspeakable horrors. They were forced to train, to run and hide, their every move watched by men with cruel eyes. It became clear that this was no ordinary trafficking ring. It was a human hunting ground. The wealthy and powerful paid handsomely for the thrill of hunting these children, treating their lives as mere sport. Asha's spirit, however, refused to be broken. She formed a bond with another girl named Priya, who had been at the mansion for months. Together, they hatched a plan to escape. They studied the guards' routines, noting the few moments when security was lax. Their opportunity came one stormy night, when the hunters were distracted by a lavish banquet upstairs. Sneaking through the darkened corridors, Asha and Priya made their way to the outer grounds. The mansion's expansive gardens, usually a place of beauty, were transformed into a treacherous labyrinth by the storm. The rain poured down in torrents, turning the paths into rivers of mud and obscuring their vision. As they reached the edge of the forest, a guard spotted them. Asha urged Priya to run while she distracted the guard, a selfless act that would seal her fate. Priya hesitated, her eyes wide with fear and gratitude, before disappearing into the darkness of the woods. Asha fought with all her might, but the guard was too strong. He dragged her back to the mansion, her cries for help swallowed by the raging storm. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and electric, the hunters still reveling in their banquet, oblivious to the drama unfolding outside. Asha was taken to a room she had never seen before, a room filled with monitors and surveillance equipment. Minister Sharma stood before a bank of screens, his expression one of cold satisfaction. On the screens, Asha saw live footage of the other children, each one trapped in a different part of the mansion's grounds, their every move monitored. Sharma turned to Asha, his eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "You thought you could escape?" he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're nothing but a pawn in a game far greater than you can imagine." Asha was bound and thrown into a dark cell, her spirit broken but her resolve still intact. She knew that escape was her only chance, but she also knew that she needed help. She spent the next few days observing her surroundings, noting the guards' routines and looking for any weakness she could exploit. One night, she overheard a conversation between two guards. They spoke in hushed tones about a new shipment of children arriving soon, and how the security would be increased. Asha realized that her window of opportunity was closing rapidly. She needed to act, and she needed to act fast. She reached out to a boy named Ravi, who had been at the mansion longer than anyone else. Ravi was resourceful and clever, having survived numerous hunts through sheer cunning. Asha shared her plan with him, and together they devised a daring escape. On the night of the next storm, when the mansion was once again shrouded in darkness and chaos, Asha and Ravi made their move. They managed to disable the security cameras in their wing and slip through the corridors, avoiding the guards with practiced ease. Their journey took them through the bowels of the mansion, past rooms filled with horrors they could barely comprehend. They saw children locked in cages, their eyes vacant and devoid of hope. They saw rooms filled with weapons and hunting trophies, a macabre testament to the hunter's depravity. Just as they reached the final door that led to freedom, they were confronted by Minister Sharma himself. He stood blocking their path, his face twisted in a sadistic grin. "You really thought you could escape?" he sneered. "You're mine, and you always will be." A fierce struggle ensued, Asha and Ravi fighting with every ounce of strength they had. In the chaos, Ravi managed to wrestle a gun from Sharma's holster and fired a shot that grazed Sharma's shoulder. The pain momentarily incapacitated Sharma, giving Asha and Ravi the precious seconds they needed to escape. They burst through the door into the stormy night, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. They ran through the forest, the rain and wind lashing against them, but they did not stop. They knew that stopping meant certain death. As they reached the edge of the forest, Ravi stumbled and fell, his ankle twisted from a hidden root. Asha tried to help him up, but he urged her to go on without him. "You have to keep going," he said, his voice pained but resolute. "You have to survive for all of us." Asha hesitated, torn between loyalty and survival. She knew that staying meant risking capture, but leaving Ravi felt like abandoning her only friend. With tears streaming down her face, she made the hardest decision of her life and continued on alone. She ran for what felt like hours, her body pushed to its limits. The forest gave way to open fields, and she found herself on the edge of a small village. Exhausted and drenched, she collapsed on the doorstep of a humble cottage, her vision blurring as she lost consciousness. When she awoke, she was in a warm bed, an elderly couple tending to her wounds. They had found her on their doorstep and taken her in, caring for her as if she were their own. Asha told them everything, her story pouring out in a torrent of tears and anguish. The couple, moved by her plight, took her to the local authorities. However, Asha's relief was short-lived. The police, upon hearing her story, dismissed it as the ramblings of a traumatized child. Minister Sharma's influence was far-reaching, and the local authorities were either complicit or too afraid to act. Asha realized that justice would not come easily, if at all. The trafficking ring was deeply entrenched, protected by powerful figures who viewed human lives as mere commodities. Her story was met with indifference, her cries for help drowned out by the apathy of a corrupt system. In the end, Asha's fate remained uncertain. She lived in constant fear of being found and dragged back to the nightmare she had escaped. The epilogue of her story is a chilling reminder that the trafficking ring continues unabated, its victims mere pawns in a game of power and greed. There is no justice, no resolution, only a lingering sense of dread.